Well, let me introduce myself, first of all. I'm Jen. We're delighted to be here. We're delighted to be a partner for the CP Summit, and I hope you've had a fantastic couple of days. I am in the AWS Public Sector Transport team, and I have spent the past 3 years working across the Amazon logistics space, cross-mode, mostly focused on sustainability, and that leads me to introduce Chris.
Hi folks, I am a solutions architect in the Amazon Web Services Public Sector Transport team, working with Jen and a few other folks to help our public sector transport customers get the best out of the cloud, out of their data, and out of Amazon Web Services.
Brilliant. So yes, the title of the session, Freight for the Future. I'm sure you're all dying to know what that looks like. So just to keep us honest on what we want you to take away today, first of all, we'll outline a little bit what does the future of freight look like? What does this mean for the sector? We'll then do a bit of a deep dive into smart systems and what that looks like in relation to Amazon. By smart systems, I simply mean data, AI, technology. How are we using it? How does that allow us to be more sustainable? And finally then, how does Amazon do it? You will have heard about our culture of innovation, hopefully. If not, we'll give you a quick canter through that. And just to say, my team are also here with a stand outside as soon as you walk in. So if you have any further questions after the session, I'd welcome you to go to them. So you will already know what logistics looks like today. In its most simple form, it's moving a good from point A to point B. But you will probably also know that it isn't that simple, and there are a whole wave of processes that sit beneath them. Really, logistics have these goals in mind, logistics operators, sorry. More business, providing a good quality service that drives loyalty. We want low costs. Logistics is a game of margins, and so operational efficiency is key. And finally, sustainability, which is obviously what we're here to talk about today. And that's driven by targets and the government commitment to be net zero by 2050. And the logistics sector, I'm very passionate about it. It's diverse, it's dynamic. Innovation is in its DNA to remain competitive, to respond to shocks. You will have all seen how the logistics sector responded in relation to COVID and the pandemic. And this innovative spirit is really, really crucial when it comes to the environment and tackling the climate crisis. And operators are starting to think differently about how they do things and how technology can solve some of the huge variety of issues and considerations that they're taking seriously today. And thinking about what these mean then for sustainability and how they're reimagining their approach. So I'm now going to talk a little bit about Amazon's approach, and zooming out, it's important that you know what we are passionate about and what we're driven by, and that is customer obsession. So in every single thing that we do, we start with the customer and we work backwards. And that's also true of how we think about our logistics network. So every single thing that we do, the decisions that we make are driven by what does the customer want. So for example, where we locate parcels across the country, ensuring that we deliver them on time, these are critical to us, and our network is set up with that strategic interest in mind. A little bit about Amazon in the UK. We've been here for over 25 years, which feels like a long time. We have more than 25 fulfillment centres across the country, so they're the big warehouses that you will see if you're driving down a motorway. We also have hundreds of delivery stations dotted like clocks around cities and near to our customers, and that's really to bring goods close to the customer as possible. We have 4 research and development centres, Swansea, Cambridge, Edinburgh and London, doing a variety of different tasks. And when it comes to sustainability, we have an overarching commitment to be net zero by 2040 and co-founded the Climate Pledge to underpin that commitment as an organisation. And that's across all of our operations, so not just freight and logistics, our warehouses, our offices, everything. We're investing more than £300 million in transport decarbonisation by 2027. That was a commitment we made in 2022, and we are already starting to put that into place, and I'll talk about some of those investments a little bit later on. And as I mentioned, it's not just transport. We're also the top UK purchaser of renewable energy, and in the world, actually, I think. And we're on a path to powering our operations with 100% renewable energy. So this network here that you can see doesn't run on its own. It's completely underpinned by AWS technology, which is something people aren't necessarily aware of and don't make that connection. So when we think about sustainability, it's really important that we think about the cloud. And Chris, I'll hand over to you.
Absolutely. So when our customers ask us about how they can make their whole operations more sustainable, there's three kind of categories of answer we give, three approaches you can take to kind of linking AWS, this Amazon Web Services thing that you do all your IT in, and sustainability. Those are sustainability of the cloud, sustainability in the cloud, and sustainability through the cloud. So let's go into each of those a little bit deeper. Sustainability of the cloud is talking about the work that we're doing to make our data centers and our services more sustainable and less carbon intensive, which then naturally our customers benefit from. And that's doing things like innovations in how we build data centers and how we build servers, things like using low carbon steel or low impact concrete, powering our services with electricity matched with renewable energy. In fact, based on this Accenture report, we estimate that customers who just lift and shift, move their workloads to AWS in Europe, can reduce the carbon impact of those workloads by 93%. And then by optimizing those workloads in the cloud, using cloud technologies to make the workloads more efficient in and of themselves, they can increase that impact to a 99% reduction in carbon impact. I'll note that this graph is kind of vague and not numeric, and that's not usually how I like to function. But if you Google the Accenture AWS Sustainability Report, you can get the actual numbers out of there. And it's broken down by region because the geography and the local dynamics of where the data centers are has a reasonably large impact on what that carbon impact looked like. For example, in a hot, humid environment, it's much harder to use cooling driven by natural air without refrigeration. Or in some places, the grid is just naturally a lot more carbon intensive. So that's sustainability of the cloud. But there are also ways, that last kind of 6 percentage points of carbon reduction, that our customers can make choices within their cloud environments to reduce the carbon impact of their workloads. And we call that sustainability in the cloud. So this is really about making decisions as you build things in AWS, as you build systems, as you build services, that will reduce further the impact of your workloads. There's quite a few considerations here, but one I wanted to highlight is use of our our homegrown Graviton chips. So these are our custom server chips that we've built from the ground up to be suitable for data center workloads. But in particular, because of a sustainability-focused design, as well as using the ARM architecture instead of x86, they offer the same performance as your typical server chips that you might usually use on-prem, but with 60% less power draw. And using renewable energy is great, and we do that, but reducing that power draw by 60% is just significantly better than any switch to renewable is ever going to get you. And I also just want to highlight briefly this process and culture idea. Like, how do you build sustainability in to your development practices? If you're building something, if you're building some service, some IT service, your outcomes, your success criteria are probably based on, well, your functionals, does it do what it's meant to do? And then you'll say, oh, it needs to have X availability, it needs to have Y cost. But are you accounting for the carbon impact? Are you actually saying, well, we need to make sure that this service is optimized for the amount of energy it's going to use and the amount of carbon that that's going to release? And just making that small change, just thinking about it once, having that as a non-functional requirement, can have a pretty significant impact in the long run on how much carbon your IT is releasing. But all of this is well and good, but it's only kind of impacting the stuff that you're building on AWS. But it goes much further than that. And that's where we get to this third pillar, sustainability through the cloud. Sustainability through the cloud is where we're thinking about using these AWS technologies, these cloud technologies, things like these deep, rich data platforms to solve sustainability challenges in your business as a whole. So instead of just thinking kind of narrowly, I need to cut down on my IT's power usage, you're instead using what the cloud can give you, using these things like the ability to ingest huge amounts of data about what's releasing carbon, what's using energy, and then process that into insights that you can use to make decisions. That's a way to unlock real sustainability change throughout the organization through your use of cloud. And just to kind of to pin that into reality a little bit, I'm going to give you an example. So this example is from Arup. They found that they were kind of rebuilding a new data platform for every project. Every time they had a customer who came to them and said, hey, we need to figure out this particular aspect of our built environment. How do building materials affect heat loss at a wide scale, looking at the whole city? And Arup was just building a new data platform every time. So what they did is they made this repeatable, reusable data platform based on Amazon SageMaker. So they could use machine learning techniques to gain these sustainability insights. So as an example, the first workload for this, the prompting workload, and then it was reused for others, was about studying the urban heat island effect and studying that in London in particular. So there's some nice visualizations if you kind of Google Arup AWS sustainability maybe. There's a blog post you can read and see how they made that happen and see what it looks like and what the impact of that was. And really this is just showing this significant underpinning where it's all about data. At Amazon, we make data-driven decisions. We do that when we're deciding how to build our data centers. We make decisions based on what the impact of the techniques we use is going to be and what the servers we're going to run is going to be. But we also enable our customers to make data-driven decisions around sustainability. So by having the data and by surfacing it into the business processes, that's how you can make decisions that are going to most positively impact your sustainability posture going forward. And I said, at Amazon, we make those decisions, not at AWS. We do it across the whole business. And in fact, Jen is now going to tell you a little bit more about how we do that in Amazon in particular.
Thank you. Back to logistics, the journey of a parcel. So as you'll be aware, at Amazon, we have an intermodal network. Our parcels move from boats and planes to fulfillment centers, trucks, sortation centers, after delivery stations, to vans, through your door, e-cargo bikes. All of this is possible because of data. Our whole system is driven by inventory management and supply chain management, and also route optimization software. And that's fed through GPS tracking data and package flow data. And I'm going to talk, actually, I'll go back. Underneath all of this, then, is the question of sustainability. What does this mean? How do we make it more sustainable? And really, we have two ways that we do that. The first is efficiency. So across this network, how do we operate as efficiently as possible? How do we do as much as we can with as fewer resources as possible? We want, fewer van trips. We want maximum payloads, and using data to really understand and predict and model that allows us to be more efficient. The second then is looking at zero emission technologies, and you may have seen some of our different press releases recently. I will talk about some exciting announcements, but I'm going to tell you what this means in practice. And this is the exciting bit where I would love to take you all on a fulfillment center tour, but I will have to do my best here in the room today. Logistics isn't just on the road. As you will know, it's under the roof. So inventory planning, I've mentioned it already. We use data to understand, what are the most popular products that we all buy if you shop at Amazon. And we want to locate those as close as possible to our customers. We want them to be strategically placed in fulfillment centers, in our delivery stations, so we can get the last mile as close as possible to you. But we also do it within our fulfillment centers and our warehouses. Where do we need to stock products to make it as easy as possible for our associates to pick and package? And through this optimization, this allows us to, in the last year, I believe it was, we moved 5 billion items the same day, all next day. So it's really through that, where do we locate things close to you so that you can get it quickly. That leads me to robotics. So in our fulfillment centres and it is our fulfillment centres. Globally, we have 750,000 robots. They complement the work from our associates, so they really help with things like heavy lifting. This robot here, the one you can see on the floor that looks like one of those vacuum cleaners, that moves large pallets that would have previously done by someone having to push them across a fulfillment centre. Equally, the robot that you see on the far left helps with picking and packing and really kind of removes the ergonomic strain from the associates. And this has allowed us to be 75% faster and 25% more efficient. So really coming back to that efficiency message, how can we be as quick and efficient as possible? I then come to safety. So this is an interesting one. We have AI image scanners that will scan vans before they enter onto the road network, looking obviously to ensure that they are safe, but also that they are well maintained. Poorly maintained vans means an increase in CO2 emissions. So whilst there is a safety message there, there is also a sustainability benefit. We use AI image scanners to spot defects, to stop products going further down the supply chain. Here we've got dog food. If we spot that there's a hole in it, we won't send it further along to the customer. That reduces returns, so they don't have to send it back. So we're doing less road miles. We'll also report that back up through the supply chain so that we don't see these repeat defects, which ultimately result in more journeys. Reducing packaging waste. Again, using image scanners, we will map a good and match it to the appropriate packaging. This has allowed us to decrease our packaging waste by 41% since 2015. We're also looking at scanners which will kind of have a laser that glues the exact amount of paper around one of our parcels, and we're currently trialling that in Bristol. So still a long way to go, but we're proud of that innovation. And then my favourite bit, on the road. It won't surprise you to know that we really prioritise route planning. We have IoT sensors on vans which feed live data into our centralised software program, as well as data from driver feedback. That's kind of meshed or mapped with historic map data and maps as we know it, to really identify what is the most optimal route. And that can also respond in real time. So again, this just ensures that we are maximising the efficiency in those last mile and middle mile deliveries. Driver assistance. In the back of our vans, we have technology. It's powered through artificial intelligence, which identifies the package that you are delivering to the next customer. That stops or limits the time that vans are idle, once again meaning that we can complete more trips on that one journey and have an increased payload. So again, optimizing for efficiency there. And some of you will have heard about this already. I know, Anna, you will have heard me talk about this with great passion and enthusiasm. Electrification and zero-emission technologies. In January, we are really, really proud to announce that we are introducing over 160 battery electric HGVs into our middle mile fleet. That's an increase from 9, and they will be joining the network in the next 18 months, which is huge. What some would say a drop in the ocean, but we're really proud of that investment, and that's part of that £300 million investment I mentioned previously. We also have over 1,000 electric vans on the road. And we have been investing in new technologies, which I can talk about a little bit more in a minute. So micromobility, e-cargo bikes. We now have 8 hubs across the country that are operating those. Maybe some of you will be fortunate enough to live in cities where they will have come to you. Another really exciting innovation, drones. We are launching drones in the UK at a small scale in Darlington this year, and they are powered through artificial intelligence to enable beyond visual line of sight operations. So they're unmanned drones, and I know people will have lots of questions about them, so happy to answer those if you so wish. And then another announcement we made in January is our intermodal development. So through using data and analysing how our parcel flows and the kind of time it takes and being able to serve our customers, we were able to compare what that could look like with rail freight and prove that actually rail freight is competitive with on-road deliveries on certain routes. And we've actually announced a freight corridor from Scotland all the way down to Milton Keynes that's taking 20 million packages a year by rail freight for our middle mile operations. So again, really using data to help inform those decisions that we make that allow us to, understand what is optimal, what is cost effective, but what is also going to be more sustainable. Finally, micromobility. I mentioned it earlier, we've increased from 1 hub to 8 hubs, so that started from our office in Shoreditch, where we saw an opportunity with some unused motorcycle parking, and we now have a fully operational hub there. We've introduced them in Manchester, Glasgow, Belfast, Norwich, Manchester, I can't remember all of them. But we now have 8 hubs across the country, some from hubs and some going directly from our delivery stations. And they've delivered 150 million parcels. That's combined with our EV fleet since 2022. So we're really proud of that new innovation as well, and really thinking about how we can serve our customers based in dense urban spaces where we might also see an increase in low emission zones or other emission standards. So, our culture of innovation. I always think this sounds a lot more kind of vague than it is. What does this look like in practice, and how do we do this? So I think one of the messages that we really try and share is Amazon and the way that we operate is not that different to everyone else. We are an organization that wants to be cost effective and safe, and that is reflected in our culture of innovation as well. And we recognize that to make progress, we have to take calculated risks. And what we kind of think about here is we're always looking to improve. We always want to serve our customers. Even if we're achieving success, how can we make that better? We start small. We think about one thing at a time. We iterate quickly. We learn quickly. We fail fast, and we embrace failure as well. So where if something that we're doing, we don't succeed, we come up against a challenge, we'll kind of deep dive on that issue, understand what is the learning there, is there something we can take forward, do we pause, do we pivot? But it's really that small, fast, iterative process that means we don't make very expensive or unsafe mistakes. So that's something that we'd be really happy to talk about more if you do have questions about our culture of innovation and how we can, enable this more of these technologies in practice. I will pause though, because I think we have a few minutes left for questions. I just wanted to reflect on what we said we would provide you with, and hopefully we have done that. What does the future of freight look like? How do we think about smart systems? And that system-based approach hopefully came through in our discussion today. And finally, how does having that culture of innovation enable us to do this, and really thinking about it in an innovative way that is embedded in our culture? Thank you. This is Chris and Mai's LinkedIn. If you would like to connect with us, then we would welcome that. Equally, I believe there is a Slido function here for if we have questions. Oh, you've got it, okay.
If it's easier, I'm happy to ask them for you.
Okay, great, brilliant.
Perfect. So I'll go with what's up liked, but it seems as if we've just got a sequence of questions. So thank you very much to Anonymous. As a customer, I'd like to be able to choose the most carbon efficient mode of delivery for my package, even if it takes more time. Is this part of your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you go online today, you should see an option, for example, to buy a package, you will have the kind of prime next day option. You will have other options listed. One that you can choose is to have your parcels delivered together. That might be slower, but fewer deliveries and lesser packaging. I would say, though, it's a real misconception that same or next day delivery is more carbon intensive. From what I've just described, and the reason that we locate parcels so close to you is so you can get them the next day. They're already there. We are not moving them through the network to you as a customer to be delivered that day or the next day. So actually, there isn't really a difference from a CO2 perspective of having a parcel delivered the next day versus 2 days because of how we manage our inventory across the network.
Great, thank you very much. And then another question from Mark Blanchard from Macro Transport Systems. Question for the Freight Future session. Given the growing heavy road freight task in the UK, what is the impact to road infrastructure, e.g. potholes or wear and tear, from heavy vehicles? And is this an environmental consideration, particularly where vehicles have underperforming suspension systems?
Now, I don't know if I am the best person to answer that question. You know, I guess what I would say is, from our perspective, we're always looking at different technologies, as I mentioned, utilising rail freight, utilising intermodal freight. From our perspective, that comes from a need to decarbonise and serve customers, as opposed to, you know, thinking about the maintenance of the road network. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can pick that up afterwards, Mark. I'm not sure where you are.
Sure. And don't forget, you can find Jen and Chris at their stand just outside the door as well, just for any other questions. So another question that's come through: what does your data tell you about the time savings for e-cargo bikes that might deliver in London and any other congested places, and did it offset the smaller load?
So I don't think that we're able to share specifics on data of the performance of our e-cargo bikes. What I would say is we've seen really positive results in relation to the geographies that they're able to serve. So, for example, from the hub in Shoreditch, where our office is based, that can serve a 5-kilometre radius. And we're also looking at different models for how we could extend that, you know, whether there are other kind of drop-off points along the way, or other ways that they can reload payloads and reach broader geographies. But for us to be able to invest in anything, as I mentioned, it has to be competitive from a speed perspective and also a customer service perspective to our current operations.
Great. I'm going to combine the next two, as they're both around micro-mobility, so just bear with me 1 second. So what is the outlook for the use of micro-mobility in the last mile for the next 5 to 10 years? And conversely, around that, what are some of the kind of biggest problems that you're experiencing around adoption and implementation of micro-mobility solutions?
So from our perspective, it's a core part of our strategy for last mile deliveries. I would say there are a number of different factors that have to come together, and this can be challenging. So, for example, travelling up hills, or thinking about topography in cities and what the current technology can do. You know, all of these factors are things that we have to consider in order for it to be competitive with a van delivery from a commercial perspective, a speed perspective, obviously from a safety perspective as well. We have very high standards. So there are a number of things that have to come together. At the moment, that is what we would base our kind of decisions on when it comes to expanding micromobility. The second part of the question was around the biggest barriers and challenges. I think, you know, something that we have called for publicly previously is around ensuring regulation for e-bikes is proportionate and enables technologies like e-cargo bikes. So something that we were advocated for was a kind of 500, instead of the 250 watt motor power regulation, to increase that to 500 watts. That would simply allow us to go up hills more easily and carry payloads up hills. It doesn't mean you can accelerate or go faster. So I think small tweaks to regulation probably is what would enable greater usage.
Great. And one final question that I think is interesting for probably many people to discover in this room. So is there space for academic researchers, and I guess this could be open more so to just academic researchers, to help in your route optimizing analysis, and how is that handled in-house? And I guess, do you make that sort of openly available as a bit more of open source code?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think we're always looking to collaborate. We work very closely with local authorities. We work as part of other demonstrator projects with government. So where there is an opportunity for us to work with academia as well, of course, we want to drive the sector forward and be collaborative. So perhaps.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all we've got time for now. So please join me in saying thank you to Jen and Chris.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.